Hello, everyone, and welcome to GuildGab episode 73. This is a show all about Guild Wars 2, airing every single Friday on Twitch. Today, we're going to be talking about the unfortunate news that Colin Johansson is leaving ArenaNet. It was announced in an AMA by Michael Bryan and the devs, which we're also going to talk about all the information that came from that, and some other stuff, some general state of the game, the Dominator weapons, new items in the gem store, of course, Raid Wing 2, all of that and more today. First, let me introduce my co-hosts, MMOINKS and Alex of the RPG Shack.
Hey, what's going on? Nice to see you, nice.
Tis a good day. Tis a good day.
Yeah.
Well, except for the sad news.
Except for Colin leaving.
Except for Colin leaving. Yeah. So, unfortunately, for those who haven't heard, last Friday, right after Guild Chat, only a couple hours after we ended GuildGab, there was an AMA and Ask Me Anything on Reddit by Michael Bryan, and he sat down in the ArenaNet offices, actually tweeted out some really cool pics of all the devs in the lobby, sitting down with their computers on Reddit, ready to answer everybody's questions. They basically had like the heads of just about every department in ArenaNet there, ready to answer questions. Fractals, World vs. World, Living Story, like just everybody. It was really cool. And in the original post, Mike mentioned just very briefly that the bomb that Colin Johansson is leaving ArenaNet.
Yeah.
He's leaving on good terms. That's a good thing. He said he's leaving on good terms. Everyone's, still friends. He's not fired or didn't rage quit or anything like that. Colin himself said in the threads that he basically He found another opportunity that allowed him to be closer to his family, spend more time with them, not have the super long commute that he apparently has right now to the ArenaNet offices. And it was just all around better for him and his family and helped him support his family more. So I commend him for that completely. Yeah. I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, going from what I understand about where the ArenaNet office is, it's in Bellevue, Washington, which that seems kind of
not
fairly
easy
central.
To get to in the first place.
Yeah, and on top of that, having to commute to that every day, just if it's starting to put a wedge between your family and your free time and that kind of thing, and some of you might know that McLean Deemer, who's the sound guy, he moved down to California. I think it was McLean, wasn't it? Yeah, it was.
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
I think McLean's now lives in California, and so he can do the majority of his work from there. But obviously, it's a little bit trickier to have the game director live 3 states away when you're trying to gear up for the next expansion and Living World Season 3 and all of kind of what's been going on. So it's it's really sad that Colin's going, because he's been he's been with ArenaNet for 11 years. He's probably the most recognizable face of the Guild Wars 2 team at the moment, and I'd kind of I'd almost say he's more recognizable than Mike at the moment, because Mike kind of obviously as president, he's kind of taken a bit of a step back the last few years from outright developing to more running the company, which as president he is wont to do. But Mike is taking over as interim game director until they find a new person.
Right.
And I want Mike to stay game director.
Right.
Because like Mike O'Brien's history is just absolutely bananas about the titles that he's worked on. He's worked on StarCraft, Warcraft 2, World of Warcraft, Diablo 2, when he was back in Blizzard. And he also came up with it was called MBQ, I think. Something like that. Basically, he designed the system that allowed information to just kind of transfer and seamlessly between kind of servers, and allowed everything to talk to each other. So the guy is like a genius. All of the stuff that he did kind of paved the way for BattleNet and the way that Blizzard's online services work today, ignoring Error 37, because that was somebody else's fault. But like the classic kind of Blizzard stuff, that's like Mike O'Brien had a huge part in that, and obviously he had a huge part in developing the original Guild Wars 1. He was I think he was at least design lead and certainly developed a lot of content for it. And Guild Wars 1 had some very, very favorably received content, and the style of it, people still look back to it, with fond memories today. And in the Reddit post, when they were saying, hey, guys, you can ask questions about what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be changing, he was very open about recognizing some of the areas where perhaps things hadn't gone quite as well as they were hoping it would do in Heart of Thorns. And to be honest, I'd kind of like to see somebody in that role for maybe a year or until the next expansion comes out, so you don't have kind of heads of department and directors changing 6 months into development. If they're already developing the second expansion in Living Story 3, as they said they were doing in the Reddit post, I think the last thing that it would need is a third person coming in to take control of it at the moment. So Mike for game director, hire a president.
Hire a president. That's
Hire
much
a
easier
president.
to find than a game director. I do think we'll see a game director before expansion 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Game 3, expansion 2. I think we'll see a game director before that. And really, we're not going to see a directional change to the game until another game director comes in. Colin and Mike are kind of on the same page as far as where the game is, where they want the game to go, and, that sort of thing. So right now, he's not only is he running the company, but he's also, just filling in for a game director in the meantime until they find, a suitable replacement. I've said it a couple times, and it's been echoed quite a bit by, I think, everybody, but Colin's definitely going to be missed. Like you were saying, a clear figurehead for the game. But if you've ever gone to any of the ArenaNet parties or the conventions, or he is just so approachable, really. I think I got to spend all of maybe 2 minutes talking to him, unfortunately, at PAX East, because he is just so swamped with everybody who's around him. And, it's funny, but he really kind of commands the entire room with his smile, with his personality. Just a beaming personality. Very open to talk about Guild Wars 2 and the game, and he's not the kind of person who shuns you off or shuts you down. He genuinely listens to whatever feedback those people have to say about him. And sometimes, believe me, overhearing some of those conversations, it's not always favorable feedback that he listens to. So he's definitely going to be missed within the community. Certainly at the company, I can't imagine what a lot of those guys are going through who have worked with him for like 11 years or however many years those, the other developers have been there. He's been there a long time. So definitely going to be missed. I have every confidence, obviously, in Mike. He's one of the founders of the game, so it'll be fine as far as the state of the game and everything goes. But it doesn't mean that we, the community, won't miss Colin as game director.
Yeah, I would say that I think it has come at a little bit of an unfortunate time in terms of where the game is at the moment, because I think we're at the point where a lot of people are starting to feel a little bit about Heart of Thorns. I think like the whole taxi thing and the big map-wide events now are really starting to take their toll on the player base, and the continued issues with World v World. I just think that, obviously, no one should ever say to Colin, "Come on, at least stay until this is sorted out," because that opportunity isn't going to be there for him if he says, "Oh, just give me 6 months or whatever." But I think the timing of it is just a little bit unfortunate. But
I think it's going to be good to have a fresh face in there, even though Mike's been. But it's a good thing that Mike's been with the company. He founded it, and he knows the ins and outs. He knows everything. about the business side, the game side. So I think having him in a fresh position will not only refresh him. He said that he was excited to go in the game director position, to do that for a while, but that he was planning to hire a new game director and go back into the presidency to run the business side of things. But he was excited to get to be in that role for a while, and I think that having a fresh set of eyes, not that there was anything wrong with Colin's enthusiasm or anything that he did, but just you need a refresher now and again. You need a fresh set of eyes, you need a fresh set of direction. And I think that it's going to be a little bit of a breath of fresh air, especially in a time like this where there is a lot of controversy and there's a lot of negativity floating around about the game. So hopefully this will bring nothing but good. I mean, Mike was very transparent in the stuff that they're working on. I mean, he had all the devs there. The devs were being pretty transparent as they could be, in saying what they're working on, that they are working on new fractals, that they are, working on World versus World, that, that they are considering taking another look at dungeon rewards, and that they really do listen to the feedback, but this stuff doesn't happen overnight.
Absolutely.
So,
go on, sorry, man.
One of the other things that's interesting, some of the player base may not know this, or maybe they don't remember, depending on how new to Guild Wars 2 you are, but very early on when Guild Wars 2 was being developed, there was a lot of pictures and a lot of talk about how ArenaNet works now is, I think, probably a little bit different on the way it worked before launch, but maybe I'm wrong on that, because obviously I don't see those guys and girls work on a daily basis. But Mike is very much one of these people who he just will plop down right next to you with his laptop and just jump in and start working. What are you working on? Let me help you, right? He's just that type of guy. He really is passionate about, like, literally working on the game himself. Like, he has no problem doing that. Whereas, coming from a corporate background myself, not in game development, but in other things, the companies I work for, you would never see the president working alongside you in anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's really funny, interesting, and it speaks a lot of his character that he just will plop a laptop down next to you and say, "What are you working on? Let's work through this together," or whatever, right? And I always thought that was really interesting to see. Like, they were working in hallways and just wherever they were working, right? It was just really cool to see stuff like that when the game was originally being developed, and yeah.
And it's still like that. The studio is designed to be very open, and you don't have everybody in their little cubicles. It's very open. You can talk to the people next to you, and it's like a big family. And just to another nod to what Inks was saying earlier about Colin as a person, he is like when there, like you said, there's a million people commanding his attention, but when you're talking with him, you feel like he makes you feel like the most important person in the room. Like, his attention isn't divided. Okay, who else wants to talk to me? It's like, it is on you. It is on your feedback and what you are saying. And the enthusiasm that he has for the game is just like off the charts. Like, his eyes light up like a kid at Christmas when you start talking about the game. So, any thing like people might say, oh, he just, he's upset with the game and he just wanted to leave, or he wanted to get away from it all. I guarantee you that's not true. And I've been fortunate enough to meet Mike and talk to him as well, and he's he's much more soft spoken and not as outgoing as Colin is. Like, Colin's been like the face of ArenaNet. But he also has that enthusiasm for the game that just, he just loves it, and he really cares about the community. The little bit that I've talked to him, he really talks a lot about the community of Guild Wars 2, even more than the game itself. So he is really, like, he craves that feedback. I mean, he came right out and did an AMA, and he's like, I want to hear what the players want. I want to hear your feedback. Please ask us questions. We want to communicate with you. So I just think that's a great testament to how he's going to lead the game development, and I'm really, really excited to see, to see what, if we're going to see these big changes, if what's going to come of this. By the way, thank you so much to Guild Wars 2 for the host. Welcome everybody from the Guild Wars 2 channel. You can head on over here if you want to join the discussion on everything that we're talking about today. Right now, going over the AMA by Mike O'Brien on Reddit last week, and everything in there, kind of state of the game, Colin leaving, stuff like that. So, welcome everybody.
Yeah, it's
So what else did we find out in this AMA? I kind of briefly mentioned fractals, though we knew that they were working on new fractals.
New fractals. There's going to be Living World Season 3 is probably going to come after the third raid wing. We got more specific information about the release of Season 3. We knew it was going to be this year, but there's been a wild range of speculation as far as when it's going to come out, and Mike O'Brien confirmed that it is after Raid Wing 3, so after the next raid release, which they're planning on releasing in May or June. So I'm going to guess June, and I'm going to say that the earliest, actually he said the quarterly update after the next raid, right? So that takes us to what, quarter 3 for Living World?
Quarter 3.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be fine. Super adventure.
That'll be fine. That'll be fine.
That'll be fine.
I think this news kind of caught a good portion, myself included, part of the community off guard as to how late in the year this was starting. I kind of expected quarter 2, and now we know it's going to be an entire quarter later. It's a little bit, it's hard, especially because Heart of Thorns launched in October. And depending on how quickly you play through that, some people play very quickly through it. Some people take their time. But, one of the criticisms aimed at Heart of Thorns is how short the story felt with that. And because the way the story ended, it didn't really wrap a lot of things up. It left a lot of loose ends. There wasn't like a party afterwards for your group, etc. And so a lot of people want to get into Living World Season 3. They want to know what happened. They want to know the direction of the story and tie up some of those loose ends before you start on the next part of that chapter, the next chapter, really. And so, when we first started the year, I think a number of us were optimistic that we weren't going to get it in January or February right away. But I think a lot of people thought it was going to roll out soon after that. And then we kind of got that roadmap for quarters. And it's like, okay, well, clearly it's not going to happen in quarter 1, probably quarter 2. And now we find out it's not going to happen in quarter 3. That delays it another, X number of months. It's not hard to see why that would be a bit shocking or disappointing to those players who are waiting for that story.
It is a long time to wait for that specific story content. And see, I keep going back to, I think I've got to be the eternal optimist as I am. Guild Wars 2 caters to so many different types of players, and I think it does it very well for each of those groups. But each of those groups can't expect updates every single month catered for them. Like, there's been a lot of regular releases here, but it hasn't been for every single game type. Now, people who play Guild Wars 2 just for the story, instanced story content, yeah, you do have to wait a long time. And I am probably being biased because I take part in the raid content, and that keeps me very busy in the game. But I understand that not everybody does that. That is not content for everybody. So it's not good one way or the other. I am personally okay waiting that long because personally I have a lot of other stuff to do, both in Guild Wars 2 and in real life and in other games. I have plenty to keep me personally busy while I wait for it, but that doesn't mean that there's not other people out there who aren't like just, clawing at their faces waiting for more story, which I am too, because I'm dying to know what happens.
And there are some people out there who Guild Wars 2 is their only game, and not in kind of the you know, not in kind of the terms as I only have 350 games on Steam, and I just simply don't have time to play them. Like literally, there are people who just play Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think those people will be super keen to get some new stuff. Hell, I mean, we're keen to get some new stuff. Certainly, one of the big things that I'm hoping to see is a rework of the dungeon rewards. Because well, the thing is, it's like.
I mean, we are okay. So you know, and Mike O'Brien, they mentioned this. I don't know if it was Mike, but one of the developers mentioned in the Ask Me Anything, the AMA. They did talk about dungeon rewards. They did say that it was a mistake, or it was probably a mistake to nerf them the way they were nerfed, to mess with them, whatever the case was. I forget the exact wording, but that's the general gist of it. And that they would look at fixing or changing those rewards to be more favorable. You know, I wouldn't expect it to go back to the way it was. That's just not going to happen. It's going to be better than it is. It's going to increase, but I wouldn't really expect some kind of huge overhaul to the reward system. They'll probably, and I'm just guessing, we don't know. My guess would be is that they're going to, you know, change the amount of silver that you get for completing each dungeon path.
Yay, silver.
that was the only thing they nerfed, right? It went from like a gold or 2 to like 50 silver.
Yeah,
and that just
pretty much
ruined.
Ruined. Well, that's the thing. It killed it completely because people want. I mean, we've talked about this time and time and time and again. It's like people do dungeons for the liquid gold reward. You take out the liquid gold reward, there's no incentive to do it, and people just silver wastes all the way down. And I like doing the dungeons. I like being able to pop in for an hour and just be like, hey, let's do an AC run, or let's do a COE run, or whatever. Yeah, that was my bag, because I don't have time to sit. I can't definitively say, hey guys, I'm going to be part of your raiding team on a Monday night, or I'm going to be part of, you know, I can be available 3 nights a week to do raiding or whatever. Someone in chat has just said gold is limb raw, they should rotate tier 6 crafting materials or something, but that would mean you're getting like 1 bone or 1 crystalline dust.
And that changes, right? If the price of one of them skyrockets, you know, then dungeons are even more rewarding.
Yeah.
And you know,
yeah, if it's RNG and someone ends up keep getting the powerful blood, you know, last time I looked they were about 60 silver a pop. So just from one of those, you're getting more than your kind of monetary reward from your dungeons. Of course, we could just chuck Imperial fragments and bloodstone dust in there.
Oh god.
No.
I'm okay with bloodstone dust right now. It's Dragonite ore is my inventory problem.
I just can't move. I've got so much crap. But here's the thing: if they were going to revamp it, do you think that they would look at maybe implementing a way to get ascended armor or ascended weapons through dungeon rewards? And I'm not talking about, you know, collect 300,000 tokens or well, maybe
it would have to be
tokens.
If you people can speedrun dungeons so quickly every single day. You don't need ascended armor dropping like candy.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, obviously, kind of not having ascended chests drop from the reward chests at the end of the dungeons or anything like that, but having something where you could eventually work towards getting an ascended set of armor from that particular dungeon too. So for people who don't raid, and for people who don't necessarily have their ascended armor for fractals for agony resistance yet, even though you've got your trinkets to put starting agony resistance in, but whatever. Having a way that you could get ascended armor, so that could in dungeons, so that fractal content or high-level fractal content, depending if you want it to do that endgame, would be available to you without having to go down the raiding route or the
Crafting.
the crafting route as well.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if they did, the
I'm being optimistic. Yeah, it's
the number of dungeon tokens you would need for something like that would be extremely high, because
absolutely.
dungeons they're just very easy to run, generally speaking. Some paths are slightly more difficult than others, but generally speaking. And let's not forget that ArenaNet really wants to focus on fractals being the end game dungeons for the game.
Yeah.
Which you do get ascended pieces in there. But you are right. There is a bit of a disconnect between dungeons and fractals currently. And the big one of the big complaints about dungeons is that people like them because this was your way, or this was supposed to be the way that you learned how to do fractals. And fractals should prepare you for raids. And that's not as seamless as it could be or should be, perhaps. Did we lose the stream? Oh, no, it's just me.
No, it lagged for a second.
But, giving you ascended gear in dungeons, the token cost would have to be pretty darn high. The problem is with Heart of Thorns, now crafting is even more expensive than it was before because of the way they added leather into the patches. So that's a little bit of a deterrent as well. And in order to get your first set or to start working on your first set, like you said, you should start with jewelry. Armor really should be the last thing you work on for ascended wise. You should start with jewelry and maybe make a weapon or two and then kind of go from there. And by getting your jewelry first, you can start running fractals and, kind of hope you get lucky along the way. But for some people, that first set or that first basic set is going to be crafted, unfortunately.
Yeah. And that does have, it's got the time gates and the account ban qualities to it and everything as well. But then, like you say, it drops from fractals, so it's. But what
some people in chat have a good idea of using dungeon tokens to buy ascended materials. Maybe not an entire set, but set a dungeon token amount to get like maybe some ascended materials, maybe some tier 6 materials, some kind of trade there. Or well, I guess the ascended stuff is account bound. Would that?
They could also do. People would probably not like this because it's an artificial time gate, but they could do a thing where, once a day or once a week or once some X time interval, you get a chest like you do in raids now, and that could have ascended materials inside of it to kind of help you out. Or maybe you just buy that with tokens like people are saying.
Yeah. Really, do you have something else on fractals? I was going to change the topic a little bit.
I was just going to very quickly mention that perhaps they could put like Damask patches or Elonian squares or whatever in there for a corresponding amount. But yeah, anyway, sorry.
Yeah. There's a million options. I know it's all been talked about before in length, but it's like it's just I think the dungeon running community wants it so bad that it's worth talking about for sure. We had a question. Moodrich said, "Do you think ArenaNet needs more armor in the game? Heart of Thorns seemed very little with the new armor sets." And this was something that was mentioned in the AMA that I think not a lot of people realized. They said that designing new armor sets, not outfits, armor sets, was one of the most time and resource intensive things to design in the entire game. Right. And this might sound crazy to some people, but you got to think of every single piece. It has to go with every single other piece, and it has to go on every single race, every gender. So that's a lot more goes into armor, creating armor sets than a lot of people think. And what makes outfits so easy is that it's one piece. And I think it's the interlockingness and the mixing and
Yeah.
matching ability of armor that makes it so difficult to design and to program and, you know, to make work on every single race. So that was something very interesting that I read in that AMA, and I didn't even realize. I knew they had said before that, like, they're like, guys, we make outfits because it's a million times easier to develop and create than armor sets, but they said that it's one of the most intensive things that can be done.
The problem, gosh, the problem becomes is that, and we've known this for some time, a while ago, and I don't remember which person it was, and I don't want to get the name wrong, so I'll just not say the name. But some time ago, we learned, probably a year or more, they had said that outfits would be gem store only because that's a way to signify to players, like, hey, this comes from the gem store. And armor sets wouldn't be produced in the gem store anymore, but armor sets would only be in the game. So now the problem becomes is that because outfits are easier to make, you see more outfits available in the gem store, and because armors take a lot more resources to make, you see less of them in the game. And so it creates this imbalance between the gem store and game that players are going to kind of pick apart and pick on a bit.
It's kind of, to me, to say, I mean, this is extremely uncharitable of me to say this, but saying that, you know, the armor's got to fit with everything and it's got to go with the different pieces, etc., etc., etc. You made your bed, ArenaNet, with that. You know, that's how your armor system works. And to be fair, the armor sets introduced in Heart of Thorns are of a much higher quality in terms of resolution and textures and kind of effects and everything. So the new armor sets that are in the game, I think, look fantastic. Mm-hmm. But the game's been out for 3.5 years and people have come to expect a certain thing, that in the way that, you know, new armors, new weapons come into the game, even though it, you know, and that's come from years and years and years of other games as well. So perhaps ArenaNet aren't entirely to blame for our expectations of what we should be getting in terms of new armor skins and weapon skins. But that is how the game works. That is how the wardrobe works. It's something that people were crying out for, to have an account-bound wardrobe so you can chop and change your armor skins without having to have a huge kind of, you know, library of, you know, bits and pieces of crap stat armor that you're not going to use. And that's what people want, and that is how the fashion or cosmetic side of it is built. And that you know, now that system's in place, that is how it's got to move forward.
I bet instead of wanting new armor sets, everybody should go and fill up their wardrobe with all of the armor set skins that they don't have. I mean, I was leveling alts yesterday and finished a heart quest and went to the heart vendor. I found 3 light, medium, and heavy shoes that I didn't have. And it was just from, like, a random heart vendor. I was like, I'm like, how have I never unlocked these skins? And the heavy shoes were, like, amazing. I was like, how did I not have this? And it was just, like, from a heart vendor. So, like, I bet there's tons of skins that people don't even have. There's ones that are tied to collections. There's ones that are, like, rewards in-game. Like, there's so much in there. I think people don't even realize how much is in there.
Yeah. Well, there's a crafting achievement for all the various different armor skins, and when that first came out, I was amazed that I didn't have half of those. And I was like, "What do you mean? I need the basic chain set that you need like 25 armor crafting to make?" But yeah,
I don't know. I think armor is pretty darn important to the game itself, and I do understand. And I do realize how much resources, how much more it takes to make armor skins. But we didn't really get a whole ton with Heart of Thorns. Like, we didn't get a whole ton of new armor skins injected into the game. And, you know, fashion wars is sometimes the name of the game for some people. So that limits their choices on the, you know, what they can mix and match and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It also means that going forward for some of the patches in Living World and stuff like that, Living Story, excuse me, you're unlikely to see armor sets come for that. So you're probably only going to see armor sets with expansion releases or maybe once a year in like a mega patch. Like we had Luminescent, which was really nice. So like, you know, you might see that pop up every now and then, but because of the amount of work, I wouldn't expect to see it as often as some people would like.
Yeah. Weirdly, I actually prefer the original Carapace armor without the bioluminescence effect. I think especially the heavy set.
I've been going after the
so
luminescent, and I tested it out. I like preview it, and I'm like, you know, I don't know if I would actually use this because of the difficulty dyeing it. Like I would put it on and then dye it pink, and be like I don't know. Yeah, I glow, but I can't really get the color that I want. I don't know.
That's kind of an interesting thing, right? So they took an armor set that they created 3 different weight classes for. They had a regular version that you collected, and then they added a collection on top of that for a glow effect, I guess, if you will, on the armor itself, which created... I mean, they don't look necessarily exactly different, but it did create sort of an extra armor set there. I think that's definitely something they could do, they could look into. I'm sure, you know, we're saying this stuff. I'm sure ArenaNet's had many meetings already about the direction they can take or whatever. So,
yeah. It's just like the Super Adventure Box weapons, and like we talk about the, you know, living, the limited time meta events for Living World and stuff, like an alternate color scheme. And that's for weapons, you know, you have Super Adventure Box, you have the regular weapons, and then you have the Tribulation mode. It's simply a different color. They didn't have to design a new skin for it, but it's coveted because it's a different color. And even though you can't do that exactly with armor sets because they're dyeable, you could do something like the luminescence set so that you only have to design and program it once, but you know, this one glows, so you know, ooh,
yeah,
it's fancy.
people are reminding us about the Flame Kiss set. Just set it on fire and you got yourself a new set.
Oh God.
As long as it's
set it on ice, set it on earth, whatever, just
There
use
you
the
go.
elements.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wrap it in wind. There you go. You're
But
good to go.
remember not to use a tier 3 cultural armor this time.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
God.
To be fair though, it did look really cool. It was just-
Absolutely.
It looked really, really good. And then everyone who was a human and had paid 120 gold for it just went mental.
Oh my God.
You know, it's
Back when 120 gold was a lot of money in the game. Jesus.
The thing about something like that is, and I know some people are not super big fans of, I just happen to be a collections fan. I know some people would rather more traditional quests rather than collections. And maybe there could be some kind of hybrid that happens. But if you were going to do Culture V2, where you take the Culture armor and set it on fire, you know, as an alternate set, you need to have the Culture do something with it, and then you can have this alternate skin, right, where it's set on fire, you know, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, that's something they could look at. Will they do that? I mean, who knows? I don't think that's on the table right now for them, but I mean, in the future, that is a direction that they could maybe explore, or maybe they have explored it and found that just doesn't exactly work. But
Yeah. Speaking of cool-looking skins, those Dominator weapons.
yes,
Dude.
So good.
So
good. Shiny.
really,
Shiny and spiky and ooh.
really
Chloe.
well done.
Yeah, lovely set. Lovely set. Which confuses me even more about what the hell the soaring set was about. Because like did they just were they not quite finished and like, oh, here's the set that we sort of finished back in the day but never got put into the game, and then just like this shoehorn them in.
We've kind of talked about this a little bit off stream before, but the Dominator set is one of those sets that you don't see a whole lot of people saying they don't like it. I'm sure there's some people that they don't prefer it, but it's a very favored set right now. A lot of people really like this set. And you know, like I said, we've talked off stream. What if you take this set and you inject it into like the champion boxes of the new maps, for example? That would get players wanting to run those events more, regardless of maybe how they feel about them, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, but we are all forgetting Gem Store, bro.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's plenty of there's plenty of Black Lion sets out there that, you know, that they have for
Like
the
we
Gem
said,
Store.
if Black Lion weapons didn't make them money, we wouldn't see a new set every 2 weeks. And they crank those Black Lion weapons out, man.
I understand
like,
that.
so obviously they're making bank off Black Lion keys.
Yeah, but the thing is, when it's something that looks as good as the Timekeeper set or the Dominator set, or even something really kind of cool, like, but not necessarily in keeping with the style of the game, like the Plasma set, or the
But those are the ones that they want to tie to the Gem Store. See, now if they put the soaring weapons as rewards in the chests, it's some. Don't give me that look. It's something new, though. But I don't know. But I mean, I understand them wanting to put their the absolute coolest stuff tied to the Gem Store.
Yes, from a business point of view, from a player relationship point of view, perhaps not.
No, but okay, listen. Ever since day one, here's the thing, though. Even though they're a Gem Store, even though they're tied, they're also not, because you can buy them with gold. You can buy them off the trading post.
Sure. I'll just go run dungeons until I have enough gold for that.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's awkward. We're kidding.
To be fair, the reason that I keep kind of harping on this issue is because with fractals, we've seen the authorized weapons get added into, like that can drop from there.
Yeah.
So it gives me hope that there's other aspects of the game where we could see this happen in the future, where they could take one of the sets and just say, okay, now this can also drop, you know, in this part of the content, in world versus world, in whatever, open world champion boxes or whatever. So, I mean, it could happen. Will it happen? I mean, you know, anyone's guess. But when I found out that the authorized weapons drop from fractals, it was pretty exciting to me. You know, I haven't seen one drop, but that also means that their value comes down on the trading post, and a lot of those skins are now way more affordable than they were previously.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. I've been thinking of it as taking a set that they created and never putting it as a Black Lion weapon set and just putting it as a reward for some game content.
Sure.
But I absolutely agree with you, Wink, that they need to take an older set that hasn't been, you know, less than 5 tickets or even available for a long time, that the prices on the trading post are astronomical, and put one of those sets into a certain content as a random reward.
I'm just saying, if you put the Molten Jetpack in fractals, I will run the hell out of... Yeah, I'll just do it all day, every day. I mean, I already run fractals every day, but regardless, I will spend all of my free time doing that to try and get that stupid backpack.
Remember we were talking about like monthly, like these monthly rotations? Like, what if every month there was a different old Black Lion set that dropped from, you know, X content that people don't really play that much anymore?
Yes, yeah,
dungeons.
For sure.
And I hate to keep going back to that, but
because it's only there for a month, they still would stay fairly rare in general,
right? Because
it'll be there for 30 days, then you'll rip it back out and you'll put something else in its place.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot, actually.
It's just incentivizing people to play the game, isn't it? And just saying, hey, you know, you can you can either buy the skins with gems or scraps or whatever, or, you know, there's a chance that you'll drop. But then you get into the whole murky area of that we've talked about before. So I mean, it's it's got to be such a balancing act for them. To be fair, hasn't it?
Oh yeah.
We're only
I
talking
don't
about
envy-
one aspect of the game at a time. I mean, it's
Yeah,
got a,
right,
it's a massive, massive game at this point, and you got to balance all of that. I don't envy him
Crackers. No,
Yeah.
no, me either. But we'll sit and complain on the internet about it.
That's easy to do.
Yeah.
Oh
It's-
yeah, yeah.
It's easy just to open your mouth and start saying whatever you want. That's the easy part.
Oh, just
someone
do
said-
this! It fixes everything!
Yeah.
Push the button!
As someone
Yeah,
Push the
said,
button,
what's
Ruby.
what's
it's
the
easy to
saying?
criticize. It's easy to criticize.
Right,
So
yeah.
we will.
Yeah. What's the saying that people like say to Ruby all the time? Just go press the fix it button
the
or
fix
whatever,
it button.
right?
Doesn't Ruby have
Yeah.
a
The
magic
fix
fix
it
it button? You just push it and everything's fixed?
Yeah.
Just fix all the bugs in the game. Why are you not pushing it, Ruby? Why do you not push the button?
Of course. Just press it.
Hashtag at Ruby_buyer. Fix it, fix it, fix it.
Don't do that.
Do it. Do it.
She'll probably not like that.
Block RPG Shack.
Tell him Ink sent you.
Sure, why not?
Oh dear.
Hmm.
Did anybody buy
Okay.
that new glider?
Not yet.
No.
Ooh,
No, I've
Inks
not
is
bought it
thinking
yet.
about it.
I have, gliders are. I have a real problem with gliders. Are like my new minis. For a very long time, I would buy like every mini that came into the gem store, and except for Shovelhead, who doesn't actually roll, I do have, I think, pretty much all of them. But gliders are like my new addiction. So besides the Soul Glider, because it's in a 2,000 gem package and hasn't been separated, I actually own all of the others except for the newest one, which is kind of ridiculous. But gliders to me are kind of like mounts in some regards. It's a way for me to see it as well as to show off to other people, like, hey, this new glider skin is cool or whatever. And don't get me wrong, a lot of people could probably care less as to what glider I'm using or gliding around with, but I don't know. It's just like a mount in any other MMO where you get on your dragon or your horse or your elephant or your mammoth or whatever, right? And gliders do that for me. Different characters have different gliders and different effects and so on and so forth. I wish, don't get me wrong, we've talked about this endlessly, that, I want more of them in-game as actual in-game rewards. But
That's just where we are at the moment, isn't it?
yeah, it's just the way it is right now.
Yeah.
But the actual new glider, it's pretty cool. It's got a really nice Renaissance look to it, and a lot of people are saying in chat, obviously, it looks a little bit similar to kind of some of Leonardo's flying machines and that kind of thing. Looking like they're made out of canvas and wood and that kind of thing. So it's nice. It's what I think is really kind of cool with all of the gliders that we've been seeing so far is that they're all pretty unique in their design. So even ones that I'm not huge on, like the snowflake glider or the love heart one, they're both like really different to each other. And then you've got things like the I know, just because I don't. Yeah, but then you've got the but then you've got this one, which just looks. It's got a really nice really nice old school aesthetic to it.
Sure.
And you compare it to things like the Crystal Arbiter one, the Soul Glider, the even the Heart of Thorns Collector's Edition one. They're all noticeably different in the way that they work, or in the way that they look. Sorry, and. Yeah, I think it's another good skin, and they're doing a really nice job providing a lot of different variety for the people who kind of want to buy the glider skins. And it's not like you need to buy them, as we've said before, with everything on the gem store. It's all cosmetic and what have you. Although, again, I do agree with Inks that I'd like to see some more of them in game.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a good one. It doesn't interest me, but I think it's great for that we've had a lot of whimsical ones lately. You know, the electromagnetic and you know all the
That's
wings
so
and everything,
cool.
and while they're amazing, there's people who don't want that magical stuff. They want something practical for their characters. So
Sure.
I think this one just I think it was needed for those people who want a practical glider. It's what it is. It's a it's a glider. Plain and simple.
Yeah,
Realistic.
before we had this classical one, we had like the Phoenix kite. Now that's a kite glidery kind of skin, but it looked a little more traditional rather than the wings and the electromagnetic one and stuff. So, yeah, that used to be one of my favorite ones. I kind of like the classical look of it. I like that idea quite a bit.
Cool. So, let's move on to Salvation Pass, the new raid wing that came out Tuesday. And Slothosaurus. Not Slothosaurus.
Slothosaur. It's not a dinosaur.
Slothosaur. I always misspell it. I say Slothosaur. It's
Terribly
Slothosaur.
unrealistic.
Slothosaur. He's no joke, man.
It's
Or
fun.
not so much the he's got some crazy mechanics in and of himself and attacks, but I think it's the arena. The arena itself adds a ton of challenge to the fight. I mean, the floor is covered in poison. One of your allies has to turn into an enemy and clear that poison.
Should we say spoilers?
I guess we could say spoilers. Spoiler alert. We're not going to be talking about any of the story or we don't know.
Story.
We actually don't know any of that yet. I don't. And so really only Slothosaur. That's the only thing. I mean, we haven't. It's only been 2 days. We haven't beat the Slothosaur yet. So all I can really talk about is our failed attempts at Slothosaur. Inks, how far have you guys gotten in Slothosaur?
About 30%. You know, it's interesting because it is a really fun fight. Learning the mechanics or trying to figure out what the mechanics are and what you're supposed to do isn't, you know, I don't think it's overly difficult, but execution is really, you know, a lot of people have been saying to me that they feel like Veil Guardian is the hardest boss in the first wing. I don't really think that's true for myself, but I do understand why people think that, and that's because Veil Guardian can be unforgiving if the tank doesn't move him properly, if you fail to stay into the green circles, or you go down in a green circle, you can kill everybody. And Slothosaurus sort of has those kinds of mechanics where if you're not doing things almost perfectly, I mean, there is some leniency there, but when things start to fall apart on Slothosaur, they just cataclysmically fall apart. Like, one person goes down, and then 3, and then 6, and then dead, right? So if you are not staying within the group, if you're not dealing with the slublings in one way or another, if you're not moving him properly, if somebody drops poison in the group, for example, yeah, things can go bad very quickly. And that's, 30% left, not 30% down. We get him to about 30% health left. And the things that are killing us are, Wooden Potatoes called it Wet Dog, but his Spore Shake, his wet Dog was cute. But his Wet Dog attack or his Spore Shake, people not dodging that or us not blocking it properly, and just an overwhelming amount of slublings that are not being dealt with properly either with reflect walls or whatever. So we get to that point and things just start to kind of fall apart a little bit. Not a little bit, completely.
Completely.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's, even though that people perhaps don't feel that it's as challenging as something like Veil Guardian. I mean, again, I'm still stuck on Veil Guardian. So he's still doing my head in, but from what you're saying, it certainly sounds like there's, even though the fight mechanics might not be as in depth as Veil Guardian, there's certainly less room for error.
I would say they're more in depth than Veil Guardian.
Oh right, okay.
But you know what? I think part of the problem is now that I've killed Veil Guardian enough times that I've got sort of rose-tinted glasses. So somebody doing Veil Guardian for the first time, or who does Veil Guardian very seldom, probably thinks it's a really tough encounter. Whereas I've killed him enough times where it's like, oh yeah, Veil Guardian, yeah, whatever, you know. And obviously I haven't killed Slothosaur yet, so to me he seems like he's on the same level, maybe a little more difficult. There definitely feels like there's more going on with Slothosaur than there is in Veil Guardian, but you know, maybe that's slightly just me.
Crystal Raid was on Guild Chat last week, and they were talking about the new Raid Wing and Slothosaur, and she said when they were doing their internal testing, she would ask, is Slothosaur on par with Veil Guardian? Do you think it's more difficult or less difficult? And she said no one could really answer her whether it was more or less. They just said it was different. They're like, it's different. It's got different mechanics. And I think one of the big things is that, like you said, there's so much going on during the Slothosaur fight. And I feel like the movements... let me start that again. The Slothosaur fight relies more on every single person paying attention to where they're standing and what they're doing. I think more than Veil Guardian. I think Veil Guardian, where you have your tank. Like, your tank in Veil Guardian has to be on point. Like, they have to know what to do, when to do it, where to stand, where to lead him, what segment to be in. And then, like, you have your we call it the sizzle group, the green circle. Those people always have to be looking out for that and go there, and everyone else just kind of DPS. Whereas Slothosaur, at any point, anyone can be the tank. And you get a little symbol over your head, and if you're the tank, you have to switch your thought process on a dime, and you have to figure out where you need to be and for what's going on. And then there's also, at the same time, you have someone who gets poisoned, and that is complete RNG. And then that person who's poisoned, again, has to switch their train of thinking and realize that poison's on them, get away from the group, and drop the poison where it needs to go. So, and that could happen to anyone at any time. So I feel like everybody has to be on point, and everybody has to know where they're standing. You have to be behind your reflect walls. And then when Slothosaur goes into his different attacks, you have to be looking for his telegraphs. You have to look for the telegraphs on the ground. There's just so much going on, and that I think every single person has to be even more on their game than Veil Guardian. Plus, you have a smaller arena. A lot of times it's hard to maneuver the camera because there's walls. You're like in this enclosed cave, and the arena is much smaller. And I think that Slothosaur is harder to see against the background. Like Veil Guardian, he's big, he's bright, you can tell what he's doing, it's very obvious. Whereas I'm still learning how to, like, distinguish Slothosaur and what he's doing from the environment. And there's and this is with projectiles and everybody's effects going off. It's like, and again, like Ink said, we kind of have rose-colored glasses for Veil Guardian now because we understand it. And I remember being just as confused about Veil Guardian, 2 days in, than I was, that I am now for Slothosaur. And we'll get to the point where Slothosaur is easy, but it's very, very well designed, and very challenging, and I'm having
it's a fun fight. Yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to getting stuck into it at some point.
We have a raid team member who has trouble seeing particular colors, and he cannot determine the difference between the ground and the poison on the ground.
Ooh.
So when we first got there, and I was like, okay, everybody stand here, stay out of the poison. He said, oh, what poison? And he's running around in the field taking damage. And I said, no, come back to where I'm standing. You're in the poison. And he's like, no,
couldn't see it.
He's like, it looks like a field of grass to him. It just looks like it's a field of grass, right? So
oh, man.
he can't actually tell where the poison is. which makes
Oh
the
my
fight
God.
all the more difficult for him. So you
Oh,
kind of have
boy.
to, yeah, you kind of have to guide him a little bit. And we've had some of these problems before where some of the icon colors where you lay down like the purple circle, for example, he has a hard time seeing the purple. He can see the icon, so he can still see the shape, which is great, but the color itself, forget it. You know, he can't
Yeah.
see the color. So yeah, he has some colorblind issues,
Wow.
and that makes some of the fights kind of difficult for him.
It'd be nice if ArenaNet could do something about that, because they have done something about that in the past. If you remember, there was an update to the original AoEs. Do you remember back when it was just a flat red circle, and now it's kind of spiky around the edges and vibrates and what have you? And that was the kind of their fix for people who had color issues with their sight. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of a kick in the teeth to kind of completely go down every time just because you're colorblind.
I mean,
That's pretty sucky.
he does pretty well. It's basically, you know, stay on the tag.
Yeah.
Follow,
Right.
you know, and as long as our tag is on his game, then the other guy is not doing too bad himself. It's just that when he gets the poison, when he becomes that
Right.
target, that is sometimes an issue for him.
Right.
Yeah.
So we try to, you know, obviously we try to adjust as best we can to deal with that, but it provides a little bit of extra challenge, I guess, to some fights.
Yeah.
I heard even later in the raid wing, there's more fights that have big RNG elements to them, just like the Slothazor, where it's kind of random who gets the tank and who gets the poison. Do you think that that's like a fair addition to difficulty? Do you see it as just another mechanic? Do you think that's kind of like there shouldn't be this kind of RNG in the fight?
It's a very frustrating situation to be in. I think we talked about this a little bit before we went live. Inks, you said that there are particular times when you get an RNG situation with the fight, and you're just like, you know what? Let's just wipe straight off the bat. And I'm sure that's happened a couple of times before in Guild Wars 2, or it's certainly happened in a couple of other games that I've played. That if the first AoE fields, or he moves in a particular direction first, if he goes in an unfortunate direction, you've just got to restart.
I don't know that we've, you know, I don't think the RNG is too bad within the raid. We had problems on Sabbath for a long time because there's some kind of, and I'm not sure what causes it exactly, but halfway through the fight, she'll just start dropping flak in melee. The targeting gets messed up or something, and she just likes flak all over the place in front of us, and we need to adjust to that. And that's not really RNG necessarily. That's just some kind of bug or problem or something. Replicating it, even though it happens all the time, still haven't been quite able to figure out how to replicate that 100%. But, you know, RNG-wise, him dropping a field in the wrong place or walking oddly or something, it happens rare enough that it doesn't really bother me that much. Like, it might happen once in a while that you just get bad RNG or whatever, but it really hasn't been that big of an issue.
So you think it's totally fine for example, in the Slothazor, you can't designate the tank. The tank is someone random all the time?
I like that, though.
I like it too, actually.
I like that it's random. Some people who never play tank don't like it so much. But that's part of the fun part of the fight, where people are put into positions or places where they're not used to playing, and so they need to figure out how to survive on their class or how to pool him properly and stuff like that. I like that it's random like that.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, I think it forces everybody to pay attention and really be on their toes. No one can kind of, oh, I'm not the tank, and I'm not the sizzle group. I'm not, jumping to a cannon, so I'm just gonna kind of, do my damage and coast through. Like, I think it's fun when, like you said, in the Sabbath fight, like, it's random who gets the bomb, and so everybody has to be watching out for that. Even though you do have, like, you can kind of say like, okay, it's whoever's standing. I don't even remember how it determines who gets the bomb, but you know, there is a kind of RNG element, and then even though sometimes it's frustrating, I think it's fun when like someone like with the poison in Slothazor, if someone has the poison and they don't realize it and they're still tanking Slothazor, like poison, get away, you know, you're like run, get away from us. And I think even if we wipe, it's like that was amusing. It's amusing to me.
That's still one of the things that I find really surprising about the raid. Even when we die constantly, it's still fun. And
yes.
to me, that is what they should be aiming for, and that is what they're achieving with it. And to be honest, I think that's primarily why the raid team gets such high praise, because they've not only managed to create endgame content, they've managed to create entertaining endgame content. And, you know, even though you've got the weekly maximum of magnetite shards or whatever, it's like people, you know, I know people who will still go, you know, so, oh, I got my monthly cap on Monday, or I did my weekly clear or whatever. And then they still dive in with other groups to play with other people because it's fun. It's not just one of those things, just bang it out and get shot of it until next week. And that I think is fantastic.
I think they did really well at the difficulty, and setting the difficulty to a point where I think that, you know, as long as your group knows what they're doing, and that you slowly make progress. And so even though you're wiping over and over and over and over again, you're seeing that little bit of progress, and you're getting better at playing your class, and you get that satisfaction of knowing that we're getting closer and closer every time. As long as you do keep progressing, because there is a point sometimes that you get to where you're not making progress, and you're just then it's like hitting a brick wall. But I think more often than not, at least with our group, it's happened where we just continuously make progress. Sometimes we'll, you know, keep getting them to 5%, and it's just not happening, you know, for a day or two, and then we finally get it, and it just feels so good.
Yay!
Raids are fun. All right, that's going to do it for the show, guys. But stay tuned, don't go anywhere, because we are going to be back in just a couple seconds here on Twitch with the post-show, where we'll talk about anything and everything. If you're watching on YouTube, scroll down into the description and follow us for more Guild Wars 2 content, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all that good stuff. And join us next time on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern for more GuildGab. See you guys then. Take care. Bye.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.